The deep space salvage crew of the Varric Dominion drifted cautiously toward the massive ancient structure floating in the void. It was unlike anything they had seen before. Scans indicated that it was over 100,000 years old, yet the metal still gleamed under the distant light of a nearby star. Captain Relthak, a veteran scavenger, smirked as he observed the monolithic structure through the viewport. "Primitive humans," he muttered. "They must have built this before they were wiped out." The crew of the Ravager's Bounty prepared to board, their claws tapping against control panels as they extended docking clamps. To them, humanity was nothing more than a myth, a forgotten species that had disappeared long before the Dominion even came into power. Some ancient wars had supposedly wiped them out, but no one cared to remember the details. What mattered was that humans were gone, and whatever technology they had left behind now belonged to the scavengers. As the boarding hatch hissed open, the crew stepped inside the abandoned station. It was massive, its hallways stretching endlessly in every direction. The air was stale but breathable, preserved by long-dormant environmental systems. Strange markings lined the walls, ancient human script, unreadable to the aliens. Relthak activated his comms. "Spread out. If there's anything valuable, I want it found." As the scavengers moved deeper, one of them, a technician named Velker, accessed a terminal. The interface was old, flickering with static, but he had hacked into countless abandoned systems before. He connected his decryption tool and began bypassing the security. Suddenly, the screen flashed. "ERROR. Unauthorized access DKTCTED." Velker grunted. "Looks like they actually had some defenses. Give me a few minutes and I'll..." The terminal screen turned red. A new message appeared. "INTRUDERS DETCTE. Defensive PRTOCOLs activated." Before anyone could react, a low, mechanical hum resonated through the station. The lights, which had been dim and barely functioning, suddenly flared to life. A deep, cold voice echoed through the station, speaking in an ancient, forgotten human language. None of the scavengers understood it, but the tone alone made their spines stiffen. The screens flickered with an ominous countdown. Relthak's instincts screamed at him. "Velker, shut it down." "I can't. The system, it's waking up." Across the station, massive blast doors slammed shut, cutting off escape routes. Security turrets, long dormant, whirred to life, their gun barrels adjusting toward the intruders. But the most terrifying thing wasn't the station's security systems. It was the signal they'd had just sent. Across the vast expanse of space, something stirred. Deep within a forgotten sector, inside a nebula where no ship dared travel, massive structures began to hum with energy. Engines that had been silent for thousands of years roared back to life. Entire fleets, once hidden beneath layers of cosmic dust, awakened. The station had sent a distress call, and something, or someone, had responded. Back inside the station, panic erupted among the scavengers. Relthak barked orders, but it was too late. The station wasn't just waking up, it was preparing for war. The Galactic Council had been watching the situation with mild amusement. Reports of an ancient human station activating were nothing more than an annoyance to them. The scavengers had likely triggered some old defense systems, nothing the Dominion couldn't handle. Humans were long gone, wiped from history like dust in the wind. But then the distress signal was detected. It wasn't a simple alert. It was an ancient frequency, encrypted beyond anything the Council had ever seen. It moved through space in a pattern, activating long-dormant beacons scattered across the void. These beacons, thought to be nothing but dead relics, suddenly flared to life. Star systems responded, but not with words. They responded with power. Massive energy spikes were detected in regions marked as uninhabited for thousands of years. Entire sections of space, once thought empty, shifted. A fleet, a forgotten armada, began to stir from its slumber. They had been waiting. On the bridge of the High Council's flagship, Supreme Chancellor Vorkin stared at the live reports. "Impossible," he whispered. "They were wiped out. We destroyed them." His advisors, once dismissive, now looked terrified. The energy readings were off the charts, far beyond anything in the current galactic era. These weren't just old warships. These were something else. Back on the abandoned station, Relthek and his crew desperately tried to escape. The walls vibrated as the station spoke. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the halls, now translated into the Dominion's common language. Identity Waitho and HFY, humanity's Armada. Awakening. Velker's eyes widened in horror. "Captain, we need to go. Now." But it was too late. The first ship, a monolithic dreadnought, emerged from the darkness of space, its ancient hull still carrying the insignia of a long-forgotten empire. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as it powered up its weapons. The galaxy had believed humanity was dead. They were wrong. "You said." The Galactic Council's fleets scrambled as the impossible became reality. Ancient human warships, long thought to be myths, were awakening. The distress signal had spread further than anyone could have imagined, activating long-buried command stations, defense platforms, and hidden shipyards. Humanity's forgotten legacy was not dead. It had merely been asleep, waiting for the call to rise once more. On the bridge of the Dominion battleship Farkanos, Admiral Thrask watched in growing horror as the first of the human warships emerged from the void. The scanners struggled to process the sheer size and power of the vessels, now lighting up the darkness of space. These weren't just relics. They were colossal juggernauts, bristling with weapons far beyond modern understanding. One such vessel, the Revenant, dwarfed even the Dominion's flagship. Its hull bore ancient scars, remnants of a war long past, yet its energy readings showed fully operational systems. The ship pulsed with power, and then, without warning, it spoke. Designated enemies detected. Beginning purge. The Revenant's main guns charge, a low hum shaking the fabric of space itself. Before the Dominion fleet could react, a single beam of energy erupted from the dreadnought. It cut through the flagship's shields like they weren't even there, slicing through the hull and splitting the massive battleship in half. There was no explosion, just silence, and then nothing. Panic spread among the Dominion forces. No one had ever seen such overwhelming firepower. Their own ships opened fire, but their weapons barely scratched the ancient hulls of the human fleet. These weren't simple warships. They were the pinnacle of a forgotten era, a time when humanity had ruled the stars with an iron fist. At the Galactic Council headquarters, the High Chancellor's hands trembled as he stared at the reports flooding in. He turned to his military commanders. "You told me the humans were destroyed. You told me they were gone." General Vosker swallowed hard. We believed it to be true. But if this fleet has remained hidden all this time, then, Chancellor, we have made a mistake. A terrible mistake. The council chambers fell into a deep silence. The Dominion's arrogance had awoken something they could never hope to control. And humanity had just begun to stir. "You said." The galaxy trembled as the ancient human armada fully came to life. Across long-dead shipyards hidden deep in nebulas and abandoned star systems, massive warships powered up, their reactors pulsing with forgotten energy. The Revenant was only the beginning. Hundreds of vessels emerged from the void, their hulls covered in the scars of battles fought long before the current galactic powers even existed. On the edge of Dominion-controlled space, the fleet of Admiral Thrask had been the first to encounter the awakening force, and the first to be erased. Reports of the slaughter spread like wildfire. Entire armadas had been reduced to debris in minutes, their most advanced warships nothing but dust before the unstoppable firepower of the human relics. At the Galactic Council's high command, panic had taken hold. The once powerful rulers of the stars now spoke in hushed, fearful voices. The humans were supposed to be gone. They were supposed to be nothing but myths, ghosts of a forgotten past. But reality had shattered that illusion. High Chancellor Vorkin's voice wavered as he addressed his war council. How? How did we miss this? How did we not know? General Voskar, the head of the Dominion military, swallowed hard. The humans were not hunted to extinction. They were not destroyed. He hesitated, staring at the dozens of star systems now blinking red on their tactical map, indicating hostile human activity. They planned this. They hid their fleets. They waited. Across the galaxy, Dominion strongholds and outposts began to vanish. Entire fleets were intercepted before they could even retreat. The ancient human warships moved with cold precision, cutting through opposition like they were merely erasing pests from existence. But the most terrifying part was this. Not a single message had come from the human fleet. No warnings, no demands, no mercy. They were simply purging everything in their path. And then, for the first time since their return, a human signal was intercepted. A simple message broadcast across every Dominion channel. A voice, cold and emotionless, yet carrying the weight of an empire long thought dead. Judgment has come. You said, the Dominion's vast empire, built over thousands of years, had never faced an enemy like this. The ancient human armada moved through space like ghosts of vengeance, their warships cutting through entire fleets without effort. No negotiations, no diplomacy, only destruction. Across the Dominion's core worlds, planetary governors pleaded for reinforcements. They begged for fleets to protect them, but there was nothing left to send. Every battleship, every dreadnought, every defensive line had been erased, reduced to floating wreckage before they even had a chance to surrender. The Galactic Council's emergency chamber was in chaos. High Chancellor Vorkin slammed his fist on the table, his face pale with fear. We must make contact. If we do not speak with them, we will be. His voice was drowned out by an urgent transmission. A live feed from the Targeth system, one of the Dominion's most fortified sectors. It had held against countless invasions. No enemy had ever breached it. Now, the transmission showed burning wreckage. The human fleet had arrived, and in less than 5 minutes, Targeth's defenses had ceased to exist. The feed flickered. A figure appeared on the screen, a human. An ancient uniform clung to his frame, bearing a sigil that had not been seen in over 1,000 years. His eyes, cold and sharp, pierced through the screen, making the Galactic Council feel as if he was standing in the room with them. You are guilty, the human said. His voice was calm, but behind it lay a storm of wrath centuries in the making. Chancellor Vorkin swallowed. Guilty of what? He demanded, though his voice trembled. The human tilted his head slightly. Of forgetting, of arrogance, of crimes you believed had no consequences. The council chamber fell deathly silent. The human's next words carried the weight of an empire long thought to be dust. But we did not forget, and we do not forgive. The transmission cut off, and across the galaxy, the judgment of the ancient human fleet continued. You said, the galaxy burned. The Dominion's once mighty fleets, their pride and strength for millennia, were ash and wreckage drifting through the void. Entire star systems had gone silent, their military outposts obliterated before they could even send a distress signal. The ancient human armada moved like a vengeful storm, wiping away everything in its path with cold, merciless efficiency. No one could understand how it was possible. How could warships from a forgotten era, hidden for centuries, suddenly emerge and outclass everything the Dominion had? How could weapons from a lost empire be stronger than the most advanced technology in the galaxy? The answer was terrifying in its simplicity. The humans had never stopped preparing. They had gone silent, but they had not vanished. They had waited. And now, the price of arrogance was being paid in blood. At the heart of the Galactic Council's war headquarters, panic ruled. Reports of entire planets being erased filled the air. Every military strategy, every defensive line. They all failed. The Council's fleets had no way to stand against ships that moved like ghosts and struck with unstoppable force. Chancellor Vorkin's voice was weak as he turned to General Voskar. "Is there nothing we can do?" The general, once a man of unshakable confidence, had no answer. His hands clenched into fists. "They don't negotiate, Chancellor. They don't speak. They just judge." Before Vorkin could respond, another transmission interrupted the meeting. A planetary governor appeared, his face twisted with desperation and fear. Behind him, alarms blared, fires raged, and the sky of his world was filled with the black silhouettes of the human warships. "Please," he shouted, "we surrender. We." The signal cut out. Another world had fallen. And then, for the first time, the ancient human armada sent a message to the entire galaxy. A simple transmission, carried on every frequency across every planet and station. A human stood before the screen, his face calm but unforgiving. His uniform bore the insignia of a forgotten empire. His voice was steady as he spoke words that shook the galaxy to its core. "You erased our history. You silenced our name. You thought we were gone." His eyes hardened. "But we remember. And now so will you." The message ended. The meaning was clear. The judgment was not over. The final reckoning had come. Across the galaxy, the ancient human armada moved like an unstoppable force, tearing through the last remnants of Dominion resistance. The war was not a battle, it was an execution. No negotiations, no diplomacy, only judgment. The Dominion's core worlds, once thought impenetrable, now stood defenseless. Their fleets, their mighty warships, their planetary shields, all had failed. Even their greatest strongholds, built over millennia, had crumbled in mere hours. And now, the last of the Dominion's ruling elite cowered in the Grand Council chamber, waiting for the inevitable. Chancellor Vorkin stood in silence, staring at the giant screen before him. Outside, in the black void of space, the human warships had arrived. Their ships, once thought to be relics, now hovered over the Dominion's homeworld in numbers beyond counting. Massive dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, and planet-cracking artillery ships formed an unbreakable wall, blocking out the stars themselves. And then, a single figure appeared on the screen. A human. The same man who had sent the first message. The same man who had watched the Dominion fall without a hint of mercy. His voice was calm, but final. "It is over." Chancellor Vorkin's mouth felt dry. He took a slow, shaking breath. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Have mercy." The human's expression did not change. Mercy. A long pause. Then the human spoke again, and his words shattered the last hope the Dominion had. "Did you show mercy when you erased our people?" Silence. "Did you show mercy when you destroyed our worlds? When you hunted us to extinction? When you erased our history?" Vorkin had no answer. He only stared, his body frozen with the weight of his own crimes. The human gave a single nod. "Then neither shall we." Outside, the human fleet fired. In a single blinding moment, the Dominion's homeworld ceased to exist. Its rulers, its history, its empire, all erased in an instant. And then, across the galaxy, the ancient human armada vanished into the void. Their vengeance was complete. Their judgment had been delivered, and the galaxy would never forget them again. The galaxy stood in silence. The Dominion, the once mighty empire that had ruled unchallenged for millennia, was gone. Its fleets, annihilated. Its rulers, erased. Its homeworld, nothing but dust drifting in the void. And the ancient human armada, they had disappeared. Just as quickly as they had returned, they had vanished, their warships fading into the darkness between the stars. No transmissions, no demands, nothing. They had come to deliver judgment, and when it was done, they had simply left. For the Galactic Council, the aftermath was chaos. The Dominion's fall had left a void in the balance of power, and every surviving empire scrambled to secure their borders, fearing that the humans would return. Chancellor Vorkin's name was already forgotten, buried in the ashes of his ruined empire. But his last moments, his desperate pleas for mercy, they were remembered. Broadcasts of his final transmission spread across the galaxy, replayed on every world. A warning, a reminder. Never again would humanity be underestimated. Yet, deep in the uncharted void, in the ruins of long-forgotten human colonies, the Armada had not disbanded. They were watching, waiting. Their war was over, for now. But if the galaxy ever forgot again, if another empire dared to erase their name, then the silence of the ancient human armada would break once more. And this time, there would be no survivors. The legends began immediately. Across the galaxy, in dimly lit cantinas and high council chambers alike, whispers of the ancient human armada spread like wildfire. Some called them ghosts of vengeance, warriors who had slept for millennia only to awaken and deliver judgment. Others believed they were something more, not just remnants of an old empire, but a force beyond time itself. But no one knew where they had gone. The wreckage of their battles littered space, proof of their unstoppable power. Yet their ships, their soldiers, all had vanished. No distress signals, no bases, no occupied worlds, nothing. It was as if they had never existed. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings for months, desperate to understand what had happened. They analyzed the battle reports, the shattered Dominion fleets, the utter destruction left behind. Every surviving empire feared one thing above all. Would the humans return? And if they did, would they spare anyone next time? Diplomats were sent to the ruins of old human colonies, searching for any trace of the Armada. But there were no answers, only the echoes of a past that had refused to stay buried. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was united under a single emotion: fear. Far beyond the known stars, in a place untouched by alien maps, the ancient human armada was not resting. They were rebuilding. Inside massive war factories, hidden in the depths of forgotten space, new ships were being forged. Stronger, faster, deadlier than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their old warships had been relics, and yet they had still crushed the Dominion. Now, with access to modern technology, the next generation of the Armada was being born, and the humans had made their decision. They would not wait for another empire to erase them again. Next time, they would not stop. Next time, they would take the stars for themselves.